Welcome to The Longer Game, the only show that's dedicated to the future of retail. We bring on real-life people in the retail industry. We talk about their experiences, we share their stories, we apply it to what's currently going on in the market, and we look towards the future of retail. You could say it's Retail Reimagined. My name is Michael Maher. I run a customized, done-for-you service agency called Cartology that helps brands win on Amazon. Now, while my expertise stems in the Amazon field, we bring on a wide array of guests because retail is expansive. You've got e-commerce. Yes, you've got marketplaces like Amazon. You've also got brick and mortar that is evolving. You've got logistics. You've got technology, finance. There are so many aspects to retail, and it's complicated. So we're here to bring you the entire story. Do you think that you have an interesting story and you'd like to tell it on the podcast? Then go to thelongergame.com and fill out a form to be a guest on the show today. You can catch The Longer Game on any social channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our website, thelongergame.com. We've got all awesome guests on this show, so that I will promise. Are you ready to hear more about the future of retail? Let's get down to business. Welcome, everybody, to Season 3 of The Longer Game. It's crazy. It feels like we just wrapped Season 2, really, because we did. But welcome to Season 3 of The Longer Game. This show is about retail. I get to talk about Amazon. I get to talk about my perspective, but I get to bring on all kinds of guests to talk about the retail landscape and how it's evolving. And Season 3 is going to be awesome. And I'm excited to have on our first guest today. His name is Kenton Snyder. He is a customer success manager at Intentwise. We've had a couple people from Intentwise on the show before, and so I guess we're just keeping that theme going. But welcome, Kenton. It's great to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Happy to be here.
Or should I say Keaton? We were joking before about people messing up names. People mess up my last name all the time. It's actually pronounced Maher, but it looks like Maher, Maher, and it's fine. My daughter's like, why do people mess up our name? I'm like, just get used to it, sweetie. I'm like almost 40 years in, so don't worry about it.
Never gonna go away.
Never gonna go away. But tell us a little bit more about you. Tell us about what you're doing at Intentwise. Maybe a little bit about your background as well, so we can get our guests some context on you.
Totally. So yeah, in my current role at Intentwise, where I've been since the start of the year, really focusing in on supporting our brand and agency partners through their use of some of our different tools. So supporting their use through Ad Optimizer on sponsored ads, DSP, Walmart, Criteo, really helping them set up different optimizations to help save time on that front. And then on our analytics and AMC side of things as well, helping them dive deeper into their data, set up custom templates, custom AMC queries to really customize their data sets to their brand. So that's been great. I enjoyed doing that for the last couple months. The Intentwise team has a lot of really good experts in the Amazon space, so it's been great to get to learn from some of them more as well. In the past, I've been at agencies myself, so work with some agencies now, but I've worked myself at an agency where I honed in on working through things on sponsored ads and DSP front, from initial strategy development to campaign executions and optimizations. So have some good experience on the execution side of things as well.
Having agency experience and then going into a SaaS company, I do feel like kind of gives you an advantage because you've worked directly with clients, with the brands that you're now working with in a different capacity where you're really serving them. I mean, you still are at that SaaS company, but it's probably a lot more on them to, of course, do the optimizations and things like that, unless you are, managing it for them. But talk to me about a little bit about agency life. So, and my preface to that is I, of course, run an agency. I have talked with other people that run agencies. I talk with brands all the time that talk with agencies and interact with agencies. What was your agency experience like?
Totally. I think a lot of the things that most people are probably aware of that have been in the agency side of things, but just a lot of the pain points we felt were on that reporting front of how can we get this consistent? We're getting these custom requests from our clients. How do we execute these in a timely manner? How do we drive insights out of our data, out of our week-to-week changes? How do we drive insights and make optimizations off of that? How do we dive deeper into what our DSP executions are doing, and how do we solve for different attribution models on that side of things. So those were a lot of the pain points we experienced. And I agree. I think having to work through those on the agency front has been super beneficial on the SaaS side of things, especially since a lot of those pain points are really where Intentwise's focus is. Being able to support clients as I've had to work through those issues in the past, I think gives an additional understanding into a lot of the pain points that our agency partners are feeling from that front.
It feels like brands want the blueprint. Like, what is the blueprint?
Totally.
What is the blueprint for me being successful? What is your? I mean, no one's probably maybe outright asked you that. If they have, what is your answer to that when people are like, what do we do here? What's the exact right answer?
Totally. I think there's, obviously it varies based off of size of brand and your category. There's obviously that variance there. But I think ultimately for brands to be successful on Amazon, I actually saw some data earlier today that private label brands were starting to see decreases in their year-over-year percentage of markets and in several different top categories. And so I think that kind of leads into how I would approach that, and really saying for brands to be successful on Amazon, they need to take some of their marketing outside of Amazon platforms, whether that's through offsite marketing through the DSP, through social marketing, which I think Amazon's going to continue to push through. So their partnerships with Meta and potentially other platforms in the future. I think more and more of those pieces, more of that additional branding that can come behind those pieces through custom creative assets, which could play a piece on Amazon as well. I think that overall branding experience and leading customers from off Amazon into Amazon is going to be really key over these next couple of years, just as the market becomes more and more saturated from a seller perspective.
I think what my typical response is, it depends. Like, it's not a clear cut. There is always a path that you might follow. Like, high level, what does my real estate look like? I kind of think about it like selling a house a little bit. But you have a product. What do my images look like? How am I describing this? Am I presenting this product in the best light? So being conversion ready, purchase ready. Second thing is getting traffic. That's ads. That's other things as well. And the third piece is optimize. Like, everyone's going to have to do that. At what stage you do things will vary depending upon your brand, depending upon how willing you are to lean into the traffic piece early on, what your overall plan is, what your resources are. So that's always going to vary. It's never going to be straightforward. But there are some kind of main pieces that we're going to hit. But to your point, it feels like, and I've had this conversation with multiple people now, I feel like, over the past at least 6 months, but Amazon used to be, when I got started 14 years ago, Amazon used to be hey, I'm going to buy $100 worth of goods and I'm going to sell them on Amazon. I'm going to make a quick profit. I'm going to go back and buy more. The barrier to entry was much lower. And it's still quote unquote low. Anybody can get on, but the true barrier to entry is raised. There's a lot more competition. It does take more capital. There are people out there that say you have to have X amount of dollars, and if you have any less than this, it's not going to work. Again, it depends. But I say all this to say it has changed. It has become more like a traditional retailer, even if there are some differences. Their brands are getting squeezed a little bit more in terms of profit. It's really dependent upon you to drive, ad placement to get people to your listing. So like that, all that stuff is really, really going to depend upon your brand and your resources, but it has changed. The ante is up right now.
Totally. And I think Amazon has realized that their higher profitability markets are some of those, larger brands or companies that are focusing on building a brand outside of just throwing products on Amazon that have low cost or lower quality content. One of the biggest takeaways I had from the shareholder letter that got posted a month ago or so now.
Those are great reads, by the way. There's tons of great information in there.
Lots of great content. But one of my biggest takeaways was their focus on the decrease in cost from Amazon side per unit that they were selling. Like, how can they focusing on lowering that operational cost and relative to the prices that they're selling. And I think if more brands are driving traffic to Amazon for them, that's just another way for them to lower operational costs or As they're increasing additional fees, that's another way for them to lower those operational costs. So I think we're going to continue to see more things on that front, where they're pushing more towards those brands that have that outside awareness to help them from that front, to help drive, additional repeat purchases, higher value purchases to lower the percentage of operational costs. And so I think that's going to continue to need to be a focus for brands. I think one of the biggest things I learned on the agency side of things is advertising can only take you so far. A bad product pages, bad content, advertising isn't going to make up for. And I think that's one of the expectations I heard several times from clients is, our conversion rate's down year over year. Why, how can we adjust our ads to account for that? And I'm like, well, if your conversion rate's down, it may not be because of the ads you're driving or where you're driving your ads from. Maybe we need to look at your content. Maybe we need to optimize from that front. And so I think more and more of those pieces, like you were saying, are becoming increasingly relevant and increasingly important for success. And it's going to take having honed-in content, honed-in ads, a honed-in product to truly be successful.
You touched on something that you kind of read my mind, but like as much as there is a be conversion ready, drive traffic, optimize, as much as those things are part of it, it all comes down to the product. And when the barrier to entry was lower and Amazon was not more of a novelty, but it just was still kind of fresh and exciting, it wasn't the behemoth that it is now, you could put up a product that was maybe just okay, that didn't have a strong brand, and get away with it. Part of the level of Amazon raising is you can't have a crap product. And when we talk about brand, people say building a brand on Amazon. I think there might be some misconceptions there. So one of the things is a brand is not just at a very basic level. Yes, there's a logo. Yes, there's design, but a brand should evoke something in the consumer. Like, what do I want these people to feel, and who am I going after? If you're selling a product on Amazon right now and you haven't thought about that or even gotten to that place, start now. It is not there's a process for doing it, but as long as you're at least saying like, all right, here's my product. What problem am I solving? Am I solving a problem? Am I solving the problem well? Okay, what do I want people to think or feel when they see my brand? What do I want them to feel? What are they feeling about the problem? And then once they use my product, what am I wanting them to feel? So like really getting into the mindset of your ICP. And then once you've done that, now you're starting to talk about building a brand. So you've got this brand that brings people back, that if they are searching and buying your product or seeing, views of your product on, let's say, DSP, and you're increasing your brand searches because now they're more familiar with your brand. Like, that's what a brand can do, and that's why it's powerful. If you're just selling toothpicks and that's it, someone's going to go and search for toothpicks on Amazon, and maybe your product shows up, maybe it doesn't. Super competitive. There's no differentiation. So, like, building a brand and having a great product is really the core. And I think that's another thing, that brands or sellers really have to think about is, have I created a brand that's worth someone's money?
Totally. And I think, it used to be, obviously, like you're saying, a lot simpler, where you could almost just throw products up on Amazon, and you weren't probably going to be the best seller just throwing a product up there, but you could get some decent sales velocity. And I think a lot of even legacy sellers that were developing a level of brand in the past are starting to really feel the effects of lower priced items, because these smaller companies have lower overhead, or lower margins because of the additional fees that are being brought in, and really are struggling to keep up on Amazon in some of these recent years because of that price point difference and the lack of ability to lower prices. And I think brand really is what comes back to that, right? If I am going to outprice my market by 20%, and people are just coming and searching for, let's take headphones for an example. Someone comes and searches for headphones. If I outprice the market, but no one has any, relevance to what my product is, they don't have any experience with my product, or they have no reason to pay that extra price point. But if I take an example like, we think about Apple. Apple has done a great job of, comparing themselves or making themselves have an overlap in people's minds with innovation. People think of Apple, they think of, innovative products, innovative ecosystem. And so they're able to come
whether you like Apple or not, you know who they are.
Exactly. And they've come out with, these headphones that outprice the next highest price market by 50%. and they're still selling a ton of them just because of the the brand that goes along with Apple, the status that Apple gives someone or is perceived to give someone who's using their products, and obviously top level example, very premium example, but they're able to sell a very outpriced product in comparison to their category, just because of the brand that they've built behind it, even if it's not necessarily a better product.
And that took years. That was not a 6 month, 1 month, 6 week thing. That was years, literally decades in the making to get to where they are now. But I think part of it too was not just a commitment to build a brand and to innovate, but also to make something that was hopefully going to be return proof. I mean, not fully return proof, but and then if something happens, can we offer a replacement? What does our customer service look like? Like all that stuff goes into play and is part of the brand. And if someone buys a product, has a bad experience, you can turn that around by providing great, customer service. But if you don't, now someone is having a bad taste in their mouth because of your brand. That's a big, big problem in my mind.
Totally. Yeah, you're not gonna drive those repeat purchases. And I think as we see, more of Amazon specifically becoming ad placements. I mean, it feels like every couple of weeks there's a new ad placement. And they're driving those repeat purchases, especially for CPG brands or even like apparel brands who have a higher lifetime or a higher repeat purchase rate. It's going to become important to continue to drive more and more of that, so that you're not having to pay for every purchase that you're getting. You can drive more of those organic repeat purchases. Even if they do have a paid correlation through like a remarketing campaign, it's going to be at lower cost than trying to drive completely new customers. And if you have that negative customer experience, you're gonna lose those customers. You're not gonna get that return. And so I think as things become more saturated, you're right, that's just going to continue to become increasingly important.
One of the big mistakes I made. So I, as a seller, and I started out back in 2010 running my own e-commerce business. I did that for 6 years, and it went really well until it didn't. It crashed. That's a very short version of the story, but basically, Amazon opened the marketplace to China in 2015. In 2016, I saw a huge decline in my sales, and manufacturers were selling my very similar product at my cost. So it's a hard thing to overcome. So I transitioned to the agency side, took my skill set, to a different route. And honestly, I totally feel like that imposition in my life was something that God placed in there to say, hey, I'm actually gonna divert you over to this area over here. So I'm much happier where I'm at. Although, sometimes I think about like, what would it be like to own a brand now? But the biggest mistake that I made in selling was always saying, oh, this is a customer error. This is customer error. Like they don't know how to use the product. Like, and sometimes that was the case. Like I was selling so long ago that one of the products I was selling was an iPhone 3 case. And someone ordered it and said, this doesn't fit my iPhone 4. And it was a negative review. And I'm like, okay, like Amazon, you got to remove this. And like, that's their opinion. Okay, it's their opinion, but the product clearly says, this was like before, it's probably happening, but like before a lot of like review manipulation was really in the fold. They just like, where you look at a negative or a positive review and it's like, this bookshelf is great. And really it's a computer now because they've, taken those zombie listings or, whatever you want to call it. So that was a big mistake. And I think one of the reasons why some brands are really successful today, I think about, a brand like Simple Modern or something like that. It feels like, and I don't know this for certain, but it feels like there is a relentless commitment to actually provide a great product or improve or to innovate. And I think when you just rest on your laurels and say, this is the product, that it is what it is, we're not going to make improvements. It's just, even if it's a small micro improvement, that is what keeps people coming back. And how you treat them in response to that is also big. I think of like I'm blanking on the Patagonia. Patagonia is a great example of a brand that someone walks in with a jacket 20 years later and like, this has holes in it. They're like, great, we're gonna get you a new jacket. Okay, like that's press, that's a great headline, but that is like a belief in your product too. You've probably got a customer for life from Patagonia. I mean, even if they didn't buy a new $300 jacket from you, maybe they'll buy some extra stuff because they're there and they're going to talk to their friends about how well Patagonia took care of them.
Totally. I mean, that reminds me of the Stanley example from a couple months ago. They have one great customer experience story go out where they're replacing someone's car, and all of a sudden their product's flying off the shelves. People, obviously extreme example, but when people have that positive correlation of this brand is going to go the extra mile for me. This brand has a level of care for me, and again, it comes back to having an established brand for that even to be a starting point. If I'm just a name on Amazon, even if I provide good customer service, if there's not a brand associated with that, it's hard to still drive that repeat purchase. But again, just several examples out there of not only driving repeat purchases with the same customers, but with the, increasing amount of people putting those types of stories online on different social platforms. I think you're also seeing the effect of new purchasers from that, because those customers are going and telling their stories, and people see that positive experience, see that positive correlation, and know that your brand is taking that extra effort to drive positive customer experience.
It's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you are kind of feeding the machine of, you have a good customer experience, someone shares that, and it leads other people to you in the same way that a bad experience would keep people to not come back for you. Let's talk about DSP. DSP sometimes feels mythical, and I think inherently there have been some problems ever since Amazon, started running their own programmatic platform. I think it's probably the case with most programmatic platforms, with Criteo, AdRoll, et cetera, whatever the case might be. You often deal with attribution issues of, okay, someone saw this and then they converted, and so now this is getting credit for this. And so I think that's been one of the big problems. But one of the things that you're doing is helping people better understand how to layer in DSP into their ad strategy. And that's something that we do with brands, but you're also helping them do it from a measurement standpoint and a reporting standpoint. So talk a little bit about maybe what you hear from brands, like what is their biggest complaint about DSP, or even hesitation for getting involved with DSP?
Totally. I've almost heard the exact opposite opinions. I either hear someone says DSP doesn't drive incremental sales, it's cannibalizing our total sales, the ROAS is too high for it to be new sales we're bringing to our customers. Or I hear the complete opposite end, and it's DSP doesn't drive any sales, we don't see ROAS attributed to it, which I think kind of brings up the point of a lot of that being a measurement issue, like you kind of mentioned, and really needing to have a balance between those 2 points. And I think what Amazon's done with the Marketing Cloud and the data they're providing us there has really allowed us to kind of hone in and solve for a lot of those pain points. I think one great example of this is just thinking about things like a first touch attribution model. Using Marketing Cloud, I can edit the attribution model I look at from an advertising perspective. So maybe I'm running, an in-market order on the DSP. And like you mentioned earlier, right? If I'm taking, say, more of a branding approach to that, and I'm running a video and I'm putting out education about my product, education about my brand, like you were saying before, that's going to take weeks or months to truly have a branding effect or drive sales. It's not going to necessarily be the next day it drives a sale, or off that click it drives a sale. It could be definitely a longer period. Maybe if you're already in the Amazon ecosystem, it's a little bit shorter. But with the Marketing Cloud, I can then say, okay, of people who saw this video ad and maybe completed the video, or people who clicked on this video ad, what were the total sales attributions from people who that was their first interaction with my brand? They hadn't visited my product page before, they hadn't seen any of my ads before, specifically on Amazon. If you have D2C sites, you can upload your first party data, and it could be someone that's not, visiting your first party site or purchasing from your D2C in the past. So you can truly see that, these are incremental customers that I wasn't getting before, and see the effect. They probably had other ad touches between there and a purchase. So the attribution through Amazon's attribution model isn't going to go to that video asset, but I can truly see the incrementality that it's driving. Or you have the complete opposite end, where maybe I'm running just remarketing campaigns on the DSP side of things, and they're having really high attributed ROAS. They're probably taking some sales that I would have already gotten. I think there is some validity to the idea of, you could be cannibalizing a level of sales that you might have not gotten, that you might have already gotten. But I think there's also a makeup for the sales that you weren't getting before. And the way I've heard this put before that I think really puts it into a good perspective is thinking about remarketing or even just the DSP funnel as like fishing out of a pond, right? If I look at remarketing and I'm continuing to fish or pulling users out to drive purchase, eventually I'm going to start tapping the bottom. And when I'm getting to that bottom of the barrel, that's probably where I'm starting to see a lot higher level of cannibalization. But when I layer in a higher funnel campaign, for example, like an in-market video, that's like putting more fish back into the pond. I'm driving more awareness to my brand. I'm driving more product consideration through product education in my videos. And that's helping refill the pond to where that level of cannibalization, maybe there's still a slight level to it, but I'm decreasing that because I'm not only taking out with DSP, but I'm putting more users into my funnel with DSP. And so I think it really, obviously it comes back to those like flywheel analogies or things like that, but really making sure that you're feeding your funnel while you're taking out. And I think AMC helps measure the attribution of those higher funnel campaigns to truly show you what you're doing right, where the value is, to help validate the decisions or validate the strategies that you're going after to push more brands down that path.
I think we're talking about like beyond it was all great. I love that fishing out of the same pond component. Like you got to stock the pond with new fish, or else you're just going to fish it until it's dead and there's no more fish in there. So I love that. I think also if we're talking about outside of retargeting, then much lower in the funnel versus something that's like awareness based. A lot of big brands run a ton of awareness campaigns, and it works. If the thing is, you have to have a strong brand. You cannot run awareness campaigns for a crap product and expect people to buy it and to really build retention from the consumer. But big brands run these awareness campaigns because they know it creates top of mind. I don't think they're expecting an immediate sale, but they're looking at, okay, this media campaign we ran this quarter, what happened in the preceding quarter? What happened? Did we see an increase? And I remember I've talked with people who were on the marketing side for bigger brands like maybe 20 years ago. And it was, before digital was really big. And they're like, one of the ways that we would track what we're doing is like a coupon code. So we'd say, did someone use this coupon code or this specific thing so that we could get someone to come back, and then we attribute it to this certain campaign. So people are already trying to get attribution, but I get what people are saying, like, how do I know this is actually impacting me or affecting me? And to your point, it sounds like looking at AMC, you can now see, okay, where did DSP actually come into play? If you want to look at path to purchase, you can. You can look at how often did DSP assist versus getting that last conversion, which I think is huge. If I'm running, let's say, a one-to-one ROAS on my DSP campaigns, but I see that for every sale that is attributed to it, I actually get 2 assisted. I kind of don't, it has to make sense from an economic standpoint, but I kind of don't care that it's a one-to-one ROAS because I know it's helping me if I'm seeing my top line increase, or I'm seeing, the top line results that I want. But it starts to show the power of it.
100%. And I think Marketing Cloud, especially with like first touch attribution models or those assisted sales like you're mentioning, helps you validate that to truly see, okay, this campaign is truly driving this incrementality. I think in the past, a lot of what I've heard is, we know from these bigger brands, we know when we have DSP running, we see more sales. When we turn it off, we see a drop in sales, but we don't know why. We don't know what the path these customers are taking are. And Marketing Cloud kind of allows us to bridge some of that gap, especially on, things like video or even like getting to connected TV. And I think that's going to be a continued point of emphasis from Amazon that's being pushed. And I think we're going to see more and more, especially larger brands, pushing down that path. But I think even more of these mid-sized brands are going to have additional availability to put some smaller budgets into some connected TV campaigns around some of these maybe some events like Prime Day. I had a brand that I worked with last year on Prime Day that, they decided to run a small connected TV budget, and something they hadn't done for that type of product before. And, year over year, I think they saw like a 100% increase in their branded search volume from running that connected TV campaign, from focusing on having some smaller things down the funnel. And so obviously we could see, connected TV is having an impact because we saw that larger impact. That's our main point of change. But with Marketing Cloud, we were truly able to measure, hey, here is how that running that campaign had a full impact leading down the funnel. So it took us from the guessing that that was the factor, to truly proving the value behind that and showing us, okay, maybe this is strategies that we want to run again when we get to Black Friday or an October Prime Day or things like that. So I think it helps you also make those additional informed decisions in the future as well.
Being able to run on, I mean, like being able to run on connected TV, I feel like is, man, that's super cool because you used to have, at least a 6-figure budget to run
Crazy, yeah.
to run a cable TV campaign. I mean, that's not my, the cable TV is not my world, but as people cut the cord, there's a ton of complexity there. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, like you now get to test and see, like, can I come after, you may not have the same budget, but like, could you create creative that really captures people's attention and gets them to come and check out your product? And the answer could be yes.
Yeah, and I think the unique thing on top of that, not only can you use smaller budgets, but you can be incredibly targeted. The other day, I was watching something on TV, and I got a ad for a DSP network, and I'm like, either they have a lot of money and this is a smart asset to be running, or they've gotten very, very targeted to show me an ad for a DSP network. And I think, especially with Amazon and the shopper signals that they have provided for us, I can layer in different in-market audiences. I can layer in product views or product purchase audiences. I can exclude certain audiences. Like I can create a very niche audience on top of my, smaller budgets to not only, make it increasingly available for these more mid-sized brands, but also allow them to be increasingly efficient with the money they're spending. And you're right, that gives you the opportunity to create a lot of that unique messaging. I think one of the brands that I've kind of been interested in keeping an eye on from a connected TV standpoint recently has been Airbnb. I've seen a lot of assets of them kind of trying to go out and position themselves a little bit differently, right? I think in the past it's kind of just been like, okay, Airbnb is just another option. I can choose a hotel, I can get an Airbnb, compare prices. But a lot of their assets I've seen recently have been changing their messaging kind of to say, okay, you should choose an Airbnb because you don't have to go to bed at the same time as your kids, or you have separation, like you aren't in a hotel with a bunch of other families, or like trying to show some of those unique value props. And I think obviously it has a different relation to what brands might be doing on Amazon, but I think those type of things are those branding points that brands on Amazon can take a lesson from and saying, hey, what are those unique value props that I can provide to my customer base through video, through connected TV, through different DSP assets to truly prove why maybe my higher price point is worth it. Why, or maybe you're an even price point, but you're a competitor brand. Why should they purchase from your brand versus a competitor brand? What are your unique product attributes that stand out? So it's not just what's the cheaper price, what has this one additional feature that maybe is important to me as I'm going and doing, kind of a normal product research on Amazon. I'm getting to that customer, getting my brand and my brand identity in their mind before they go start thinking about that product and that purchase journey.
Have you seen what Airbnb has done recently with certain like select private, what's the word I'm looking for? They've been offering these special experiences. Like you can stay at the Louvre around the Olympics. Someone mentioned it to me because I'm a huge Prince fan, and you can actually stay in the house that was filmed in Purple Rain. And it's like, I saw a video for it recently. It was like this whole, Prince vibe, the stuff from Purple Rain. And the cool thing about that is you only have like, maybe a couple people that get that experience. But
right.
Now you've got people talking about Airbnb and the excitement of that. Like, oh yeah, Airbnb. So like there's a relevancy piece that's there.
Totally. I mean, I think there's so many cool things that they've done on that front. That reminds me of the Solo Stove campaign from a couple months ago too, where they just got Snoop Dogg out here to post just one post on social media, and it's all everyone's talking about.
By giving up smoke.
It's just a Solo Stove ad, right? Exactly.
I think there was some controversy about that. Like people thought he was actually quitting smoking weed, or I don't know what it was, but like
that's what people thought going into it, and I think it's just those unique marketing things, right, where you just because of how online everything is now, how much people are connected, how fast things spread, there's just these different marketing things. I think the Barbie movie is another great example. Like their marketing plan was incredible. Just they were all over the place for months, and I think I'm
still seeing it in TJ Maxx and Home Goods, like all that stuff that maybe didn't sell is now there too.
Right, and so I think there's just all of these different examples over the past couple of years of brands just doing something a little bit unique, getting people to talk about it, and now you have all this extra publicity that wasn't even exactly what you were paying for. And so I think there's increasingly unique ways through some of these different asset platforms for brands to position themselves. And again, that's measurement issues might start to come into play there again, but with increasing access to different measurement tools like Marketing Cloud, which I think is going to continue to bring in new data sets, or through different attribution links. I think that'll be increasingly easier to measure, but even just thinking about things from a top line or a long-term branding perspective, I think a lot of these plays are going to become, increasingly important for these types of brands.
Now that I think about it, now that you mentioned Barbie, that was actually why Airbnb did all these additional experiences, because they did one with Barbie, like Barbie did with them, and it created a lot of excitement. So now they're pulling those in, which I love. And I think one of the things that always bothered me about, I don't want to shit on the agency space, honestly, because I'm an agency, and so my play here is not agencies suck. Some do, some don't. Like you could pick holes in anything. It really comes down to who you're working with. Do they really care or not? That's going to start at the top. It's going to trickle down to the rest of the people that are your organization. And what is culture like there? Are they keeping the right people, right butts in the right seats? But one of the problems I had with, and sometimes it's still out there, but is like the bravado of, I am just so intelligent and so smart. I'm the best at ads. I'm the best at this stuff. And that's why we get results. And the reality is you can be intelligent, and also you have to have a willingness to test and say, all right, here's a hypothesis. I think this is going to work. Let's test this and see how it goes. Cast a net, figure out what makes sense, measure, and then say, okay, it worked, it didn't work. Great, now we know. But people who, when the reason we talked about a blueprint even early on is like, there is no 100% set in stone blueprint. You have to be willing to test. And so it could be as simple as, hey, I want to test a main image. I'm going to test a plain image, and I'm going to test a 3D render. Cool. Well, let's see what happens between those two things, and then determine based on the data which one works better. If the original image works better, go with that, even if you like the 3D render, but you have to have a willingness to test. And that's where I think, honestly, brands that do innovate, they're testing and they're failing. They may not publicly talk about, the 3 internal or 10 internal versions of the AirPods that they used originally until they got to that next version. It's like you have to be willing to test and experiment. And it's not just a brain game. It literally is let's find out and figure this thing out.
Totally. I mean, I think brands that aren't A/B testing something ultimately at all times, you should be A/B testing something, whether it's in your content, within an ad, within a new ad creative, within your your written content, photo content. You need to be testing something. I think someone who's done a good example of this is Native. I've listened to a lot of stuff from their CEO and talking about how they were just testing new landing pages every week just to see what were the things that were performing well, where were they getting that additional traction. And I think obviously I don't have Amazon example, but there's on Amazon examples of that where there's just so many different things now that I could play with, making changes to my A+ content, my secondary photos, my copy, that, there should be always something that you can be testing. And some of my favorite brands that I've worked with in the past have been the ones that just have those designated test budgets. And so, maybe if it's a more mid to small size brand, you don't have the budget to make crazy ad plays for tests, but there's still ways you can be pulling those levers through image adjustments, copy adjustments, and that's something that brands need to continue to focus on. And I think that's, as you were saying before, that's where agencies can come in and support, and having that experience. Hey, here's some tests we would recommend, or they can help take some of the day-to-day things off your plate, and allowing you to take some of the time to make those tests. But I agree. I think working with partners that are continuing to think through innovative things themselves, encouraging you to test, encouraging you to try new things, is important. And if I think with how fast we continue to see this landscape change, with how fast we continue to see Amazon making updates, rolling out new items, rolling out new ad placements, new creative types, you have to have partners that are innovating, or have an innovative mindset yourself. And if you are following a process just because it's what you did a year ago and it worked then, another year from now, it's probably not going to continue to work. So, you got to continue to think past that initial box.
The creative thing is great. Like, it's a very low level cost to just even if it's like $100, $500 to get some new images or something like that. I don't know. That's a very low level compared to like a $50,000 ad play or $100,000 ad play to test. So I think that's a great call out. All right. I think that's a good place to kind of put a pin in this. You are quite the student, I feel like, of a brand. So if people want to know more about what you're doing, Kenton, where would they go to find you? Would you be combing the aisles of a store, just studying all the CPG brands that are out there and knowing more about their businesses? Where, if people want to know more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Yes, I definitely love to learn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there, so you can find me there. Just search up for Kenton Snyder. Find me working at Intentwise. But I like putting content out on there. Always, looking around to see, what different brands are putting out, what different, brand analysis is being put out. So if you're posting content out there about your brand or some of the innovative things that you're doing, I love to engage and connect with you. To just continue to learn about some of the cool things that different brands are doing.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate having you. This has been the first episode of season 3. And I'm just going to say it's going to be a kick-ass season. We are continuing to have great conversations with people that are in it, that know what's going on, and that are willing to innovate and willing to test. And so we're going to keep moving that forward. Thanks, everyone, for checking us out. If you want to find out more about Kenton, I almost said Keaton. If you want to find out more about Kenton, you can find it in the show notes as well. We'll tag him and all that good stuff. But that's all I got for you, everyone. Get out of here. You don't got to go home, but you got to get out of here. Peace. All right, that was the show. What did you think? That was the longer game. We would love for you to share the show with other people and to leave us a review of the show. So go to iTunes, go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, comment, leave a review, and share this on any social channels that you are active on and wherever you have influence. We want to share this story and stories like it to as many people as possible. Do you have a compelling story and do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it and you're in the retail industry? Then go to thelongergame.com, fill out a form, and we will contact you about coming on the show. You can find us on any social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can go to our website, thelongergame.com, to actually read all of these episodes in blog form in text, because we know not everyone's going to listen. This podcast is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We are a customized, done-for-you service agency that helps brands win on Amazon. It is super complex selling on the Amazon marketplace. We help simplify that for you. This podcast is also brought to you by Podcastify Me. They are a full-service podcast production company that designs podcasts around people who are paid for their advice. That is coaches. If you want someone to help create, strategize, and distribute your podcast to the masses, go to podcastify.me to find out more. I've so enjoyed that you've been a part of the conversation and that you've given of your time to hear these people's stories. We'd love for you to share. If you want to find out more, just go to thelongergame.com. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. And until next time, cheers.